You know how sometimes you pick up in an ancient text and it just grabs you? Suddenly feels incredibly relevant to today's biggest questions. Today, we're taking a deep dive into Genesis 9.510. This isn't just some old passage. It feels like a surprising kind of blueprint for how we should value all life. I mean, from human dignity right down to the smallest creature. It even challenges our modern ideas of justice, really. We've looked at some rich sources exploring how this text demands accountability, but also shows this surprising tenderness. So our mission today is to unpack what it really means for us now. This passage, it hits us with two big ideas right away: God demanding accountability for blood and the profound declaration that humans are made in God's own image. How do these seemingly contrasting ideas set the stage, especially for thinking about justice today?
It's fascinating, isn't it? Because this passage lays down what feels like a foundational principle for how society should value and protect life. But at the same time, it hints at this much broader, more compassionate view of creation. It's definitely a complex weave of legal and relational ideas, really sets the stage for how we understand our responsibilities.
Okay, so when you first read Genesis 9, verses 5 to 10, what immediately jumps out is that really strong language: accountability. It talks about God requiring a reckoning for blood, and then that incredibly significant phrase, God made man in his own image. What's the core principle being set up here for, human society?
Exactly. That line, whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. Well, historically, it's been understood as God establishing something fundamental, which is human life is uniquely sacred. It implies that societies are given this profound responsibility to protect that life. And this isn't just a legal thing, like a statute. It's rooted in the deep dignity of humans as image bearers of God. It lays a foundation for lawful order, the idea of life for life here. It's not just about retribution, maybe. It's more an expression of the immense value placed on that image-bearing dignity. An attack on a human life, in this view, it's like an attack on the very image of God. It demands a really serious response from the community.
That focus on human dignity, on accountability, it is incredibly strong. It creates this clear moral imperative for how we treat each other. But then, like you said, there's this unexpected turn, isn't there? The text extends this covenant way beyond us humanity. It speaks of God establishing it with you and your offspring, A and D, with every living creature, birds, cattle, all of them. What does that broad scope add? It really changes the picture, doesn't it? It's not just about us.
Well, absolutely. This inclusive covenant is huge. It's key. It takes us beyond just human law, you see, into this deep relational connection with all of creation, even the environment itself. And if we think about the bigger picture, we have to remember the context, right? The flood. God had just spared Noah and his family, and now, almost in the very next breath, God promises never to wipe out all flesh again. This promise of the covenant, it's paired directly with the command about the sanctity of life. It's almost as if God is saying, okay, humanity, you've got a second chance here on this planet. Don't mess it up this time. Treat all life with the reverence it deserves. So it expands our responsibility, beyond just human on human stuff to a much broader stewardship of everything.
Right. So the trauma of the flood, it fundamentally redefines God's interaction. It expands the idea of life's sanctity to everything, all living things. Does this mean, then, a new kind of ethical responsibility for us, a broader one? Which brings us back to that really challenging phrase, whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. I mean, this line, it's been interpreted in so many ways. What are the main historical takes on this verse? How do they differ?
Yeah, that's a really important question. And it's been at the heart of countless debates for millennia. Historically, you're right, cultures have read it both ways. Some see it as clear permission, maybe even a mandate, for human governments to execute judgment. They link it directly to the idea that civil authority has this God-given responsibility to maintain order, uphold justice. So in that view, the life for life idea implies a direct retributive response, an eye for an eye, basically. But others argue it's more descriptive, that God is declaring there will be a reckoning for taking human life. But it doesn't necessarily spell out the exact human methods or require capital punishment in every single instance. This view still supports justice, absolutely, but it leaves more room for how mercy and restraint might be exercised within our legal systems. It highlights the sheer gravity of the act without strictly dictating the specific punishment, perhaps. And there's something else we shouldn't forget, a really crucial ancient connection here. The text earlier, it forbids eating blood. Right? It explicitly couples blood with life itself, that ancient Hebrew understanding, where blood is pretty much synonymous with life force. It elevates the crime. Murder becomes more than just a legal offense. It's an act against the divine order itself. So when the passage says God will require a reckoning for the life of man, ancient readers would have immediately connected blood and life very closely. They'd understand that shedding blood means taking life, and that life is profoundly linked to God's image. This deeply theological point, it really matters a lot. And it also helps explain, like we touched on, why the covenant reaches out to animals too. God values the whole created order. All life has inherent value, maybe to different degrees, but value nonetheless.
Okay, yeah, that ancient context is crucial. But how do these principles translate to our world now? Which is, let's face it, incredibly complex. Applying by man shall his blood be shed in modern contexts, I mean, especially with wrongful convictions, systemic problems in justice systems, and just the ongoing ethical debates about state-sanctioned killing, feels really, really fraught. How do we hold on to these ancient principles, sanctity of life, accountability, when administering death is so challenging, and carries such a heavy burden of potential error?
That's a critical point, absolutely critical. It forces us to bridge that gap, doesn't it, between the ancient text and our modern realities. Now, while the passage undeniably emphasizes life's sanctity, the seriousness of violating it, many people, I'd include myself here, we lean toward interpreting it as urging societies to build just systems, systems that protect life and ensure accountability, yes, but perhaps not rushing to lethal punishment as the only or even the primary response. Given our human capacity for error, I mean, our institutions are fallible, right? And capital punishment is irreversible. It seems to invite a posture of deep stewardship and wisdom. We're granted life and a renewed earth in this passage, and with that comes this immense responsibility to protect it, nurture it, not just through punishment, but through systems that seek genuine justice. That can mean strong legal consequences, definitely, but maybe also restorative practices, things that aim to heal the community, rehabilitate, address root causes, rather than only focusing on retaliations, about finding that balance, that moral axis. Life is sacred, and societies must answer for violations. But how they answer, that should reflect wisdom, mercy, and a profound care for the vulnerable. And acknowledging our own limitations, too.
Okay, so it sounds like the takeaway is sort of twofold. First, this absolute seriousness about harming others, because people bear God's image, that demands accountability. And second, this profound reminder that God's covenant is, well, merciful and expansive. God vows to preserve life and relate to every living creature, not just us humans, that a really powerful, maybe challenging call for justice and mercy to hold together in this delicate, necessary balance.
Exactly. They must hold together, interwoven, not like competing ideas, but as complementary expressions of a moral order. And it's probably worth remembering that later scripture, later tradition, they continually wrestled with this. How do you actually implement these principles in practice? This verse gives us that clear moral axis. Life is sacred. Societies must answer for violations. But the wisdom, I think, lies in how those societies answer. The text doesn't just simplify it into one command for all time. Plus, think about the rainbow covenant that follows just a bit later in the chapter. It visually reinforces God's commitment not to destroy creation wholesale again. That promise, that divine patience and preservation, it should absolutely temper our human impulses toward destruction, even when we're seeking justice. It suggests that even while upholding justice, there's this overarching divine patience, a call to repair, to restore wherever we possibly can.
Wow. We've really covered some ground today, haven't we? This deep dive into Genesis 9.5 to 10, it shows us a text that powerfully pulls together the seriousness about life's sacredness, our communal responsibility for justice, and God's ongoing pledge of mercy to the entire created world. It's quite a rich tapestry. Divine decree and compassionate covenant all woven together. So what does this all mean for you, listening? Well, it means this ancient text probably leaves us with more questions than simple, ready-made answers, but as we've kind of discussed, that's often the best place to be, isn't it? A place of continued reflection, engagement. What stands out to you from this discussion? How do we, in our own communities, our own contexts, how do we wrestle with these verses to try and model both justice and mercy in a world that, let's be honest, desperately needs both? It's a conversation worth continuing, I think, a wrestling match worth engaging in as we navigate the complex, beautiful, and sometimes tragic landscape of human life and our place within this whole created order.